Hello and welcome to the International Daily Roundup with People's Dispatch, where we bring you some of the top stories of the day. For our first story, we go to Venezuela. It has been 1 year since Juan Guaido, the then head of the National Assembly of Venezuela, declared himself interim president of the country and launched a coup against the legitimately elected president Nicolas Maduro. We discussed 1 year of the coup attempt with Abdul of People's Dispatch. So Abdul, can you first give us a short recap of the events of 23rd January 2019 when Guaido first declared himself interim president and the kind of response he got both from within the country, from the people, and also from the international community?
The entire situation is quite funny now. It was not so in 2019 when it happened on 23rd of January. In the first week of 2019, Guaido was elected as the president of the National Assembly, because the opposition had the majority in the National Assembly. And using that particular opportunity, along with the international conspirators, we can say, the United States of America, particularly the John Bolton, the Secretary of Defense, Defense, created a kind of a situation in Venezuela that it came out as if the people in Venezuela no longer support Maduro. That was the image they tried to create. And they also appealed the military. When Guaido declared himself as the interim president, they appealed the military to basically revolt against the Maduro government. As we know, in 2018 elections, Maduro had won the election quite comfortably, which most of the opposition thought is basically they did not accept it. They claimed that this election has been rigged, and therefore they were basically trying to delegitimize the popular mandate which Maduro got. Despite all the efforts in last 1 year, what we have seen that people have stood behind Maduro government very solidly. What we call the Chavismo is still very much has a very strong popular base, despite all the attempts by Guaido, despite all the international pressures which have been created, and different attempts to sabotage the working of the government. As we have seen, because of the economic sanctions imposed by United States of America in last 1 year, the economy of Venezuela suffered, people of Venezuela suffered, because of the blackouts in the electric grid in the country, which was caused by the sabotage of the electric grid in the country. Despite all these attempts, despite the international pressure, despite the fact that there was an attempt to kind of infiltrate the country from Colombia militarily, all these attempts have failed. And today we can only say that Guaido has become a joke, because as we know, in last elections on this first week of this month, Guaido lost his own seat as a president of National Assembly.
And the international mainstream media has tried to portray this picture that Guaido is supported by the people of Venezuela. And they've only sort of shown the views of a very small section of the population who is in support of Guaido. So can you tell us about this division that exists within Venezuela? Who are the kind of people who are supporting Venezuela, and who are the kind of people who are in favor of Maduro, even though Maduro does face some internal criticisms?
See, the people in Venezuela are, like any other country, are primarily divided between the people who have the resources, who had the ownership of resources, the rich, and the larger middle classes and the proletariat, what we call the working class population. During the revolutionary regime of Hugo Chavez, the people who are the poor, who are the marginalized, who are the exploited, were mobilized under his leadership. After his death, it was considered that this particular unity of the working class, the particular unity of the poor in Venezuela will be broken, because the Maduro is not that charismatic leader. But the people of Venezuela have shown that despite all international attempts, despite all the unity among the ruling establishment, the rich, the people who have the wealth and all, and those who eye the national resources of the country for whatever reasons, it is not the leader basically which keeps the country going. It is the people. The common people in Venezuela have stood behind the government, stood behind the idea of Chavismo, despite all the attempts to delegitimize it. For example, United States, as I was mentioning, has always supported the section which basically wants to undo the economic and social reforms which were undertaken during Chavez regime, and which is ongoing under Maduro's rule also. What are those reforms? Primarily, which has given ownership to the state and basically created a shareholding in the natural resources to the larger section of the population, which is not acceptable to the elite, the traditional elite in the country, which is the one which is collaborating with the conservative factions throughout the Latin America, what we call the Lima Group, and the United States of America and other imperialist countries in the world.
And finally, can you tell us what do you think will be next for Venezuela, because Guaido and the United States is still intent on carrying out this coup?
If you see the last election, the election for the President of the National Assembly, Guaido could only, despite all his drama and all the support he got from international community, he could only get the support of 30 out of 167 legislatures in the National Assembly, which shows that the opposition, which is still the majority in the National Assembly, has basically does not see him as a credible leader. And therefore, there are charges of corruption against him. There are charges of conspiring against Venezuelan people against him. And his erstwhile supporters have come out against him. So I can say that Guaido himself has become, as I think I'm repeating, has become a joke for the larger population. Given that particular situation where even the only support base he had was the opposition in the National Assembly, which has gone. And it looks like that there has been emergence of a counter group internationally against the American attempt to orchestrate a coup in Venezuela, which is the China, Russia backing Maduro government strongly. Because of all these larger geopolitics of the region, because of the international politics, and because of his own support, withering away of his own support, I think this coup, for the time being, is gone. It is no more relevant for us. So within 1 year, this has been, but for this 1 year has been disastrous for the common people in Venezuela, and that should be the lesson for the other political establishment in the region.
So thank you, Abdul, for talking to us. And moving on to our next story, nearly 11 years after the end of a brutal civil war, Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has finally admitted that 10,000 Tamils who had gone missing during the ethnic violence are dead. The admission comes at a time when his party is trying to introduce legislation that may provide immunity to those persons who were responsible for widespread abuses. Rajapaksa was then the defense secretary when the Sri Lankan government began counterinsurgency operations against the LTTE, that is the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. The president has been accused of being involved in war crimes. And that is all we have for this episode of the International Daily Roundup. For more such stories and videos, visit our website peoplesdispatch.org, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for watching.